There is a unique kind of pain reserved for the modern soul. It doesn't come from poverty or sickness, but from prosperity and connection. It's the pain you feel when you open an app on your phone. You see an old friend's perfect vacation photos, a colleague's announcement of a promotion, the curated happiness of a stranger's life. And for a split second, a cold, bitter, and deeply shameful feeling coils in your gut. Envy. We're told it is a sin. We know it is ugly. And so we repress it, push it down, pretend it isn't there. But it lingers, a quiet poison that distorts our perception of our own lives and of others. What if this ancient poison is not actually a sin, but a symptom, a diagnostic tool, a warning light on the dashboard of the soul? To understand this, we must go back to the very beginning, to a story set at the dawn of human consciousness, a story that is not about ancient history, but about the eternal internal landscape of every human heart. This is the psychological autopsy of Cain. The story in the book of Genesis is stark and sparse. It introduces us to the first two brothers, Cain, a tiller of the ground, and Abel, a keeper of sheep. Before a single word is spoken, we are presented with two powerful archetypes. Cain represents civilization, agriculture, the attempt to control and cultivate the earth. His work is hard, cyclical, and predictable. He must battle thorns and thistles. His success is measured by the sweat of his brow. Abel represents a more pastoral, perhaps more intuitive way of life. He follows the flock. He is attuned to the rhythms of living creatures. They are not just two men. They are two different modes of being, two different relationships with the world. The narrative moves quickly to the central conflict. Both brothers bring an offering to God. Cain brings some of the fruits of the soil. Abel brings fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The text then delivers the fateful verdict. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. And with that, the first seed of existential poison is planted. Why? Why was one accepted and the other rejected? The text doesn't explicitly say, and for millennia, theologians have debated this. Was Abel's offering of blood more valuable? Was it about the firstborn and the fat portions, indicating he gave his best, while Cain gave just some? But for our psychological exploration, the why is a deliberate ambiguity. It serves as a Rorschach test. The story isn't a lesson in how to make the right sacrifice. The story is about what happens inside a person when their sacrifice is rejected. It is an examination of how we handle the feeling of being overlooked, of being deemed less than. It's the feeling of the sibling whose brother gets all the praise, the employee who gets passed over for a promotion, the artist whose work is ignored while another's is celebrated. It is the feeling we get when we look at that perfect life on our phone screen and feel the universe has looked with favor on them and not on us. The text describes Cain's reaction with chilling precision. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. This is the birth of the first dark night of the soul. It is a potent cocktail of anger, shame, and injustice. His face is downcast. He can no longer look up to God or outward to his brother. His gaze has collapsed inward, into the vortex of his own wounded ego. And it is here, in this moment of profound internal crisis, that the story pivots from a simple myth to one of the most sophisticated psychological diagnoses ever written. Because God does not abandon Cain in his anger. He shows up. He engages. He becomes the first therapist. He asks Cain 2 questions. First, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? This is not a question of judgment. It is an invitation to introspection. God is holding up a mirror and asking Cain to look at his own internal state, to name the feeling, to move from a raw, reactive emotion to a conscious awareness of it. What is happening inside of you right now, Cain? And before Cain can answer, God offers a diagnosis and a prescription. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Let's unpack this, because it is the key to everything. God externalizes Cain's inner state. He gives it a name and a form, sin, and he describes it with a terrifyingly vivid metaphor. It is a predator, a wild animal, crouching at the door of his soul, waiting for a moment of weakness to pounce. The word for crouching in Hebrew is used elsewhere to describe a lion or leopard lying in wait. This is not a passive flaw. It is an active, hungry force, and it desires to have you. Its goal is to consume, to possess, to dominate his very being. This is a perfect description of unacknowledged envy. When we refuse to look at it, it doesn't go away. It festers in the darkness of our subconscious. It crouches, and it begins to desire, to dictate our thoughts, to poison our relationships, to hunt for a way to express itself. But then God gives Cain the path to freedom. You must rule over it. In this single phrase, God affirms Cain's agency. He is not a helpless victim of his emotions. He is a sovereign being with the capacity to choose. The feeling of envy is not the ultimate sin. The choice of what to do with that feeling, that is the moment of moral and psychological consequence. God is telling Cain, your anger is real. The predator of envy is real. But you are stronger. You have the capacity to see it, to name it, and to master it. If you have ever felt that internal battle, that feeling of a crouching darkness inside you, and the desperate need to find the strength to rule over it, you understand the choice that was before Cain. Acknowledge this universal human struggle with a like on this video. Cain is standing at a crossroads. He has been given a perfect diagnosis of his condition and a clear path to healing, self-awareness and responsibility. And Cain rejects it. He does not answer God. He does not look in the mirror. He refuses to take ownership of the predator crouching at his own door. Instead, he does what humans have done ever since, when confronted with their own shadow. He projects it. This is a core concept in Jungian psychology. Shadow projection is the process by which we take an unacceptable part of ourselves, our own envy, anger, or inadequacy, and unconsciously attribute it to someone else. We cannot bear to see the monster in ourselves, so we locate it in another person. That person then becomes the symbol of everything we hate, and we feel a righteous justification in attacking them. Abel, in his innocence, becomes the screen for Cain's projection, Abel is not the source of Cain's problem. Cain's problem is his own feeling of rejection and his refusal to deal with it. But Abel is the trigger. His accepted sacrifice is the mirror that shows Cain his own perceived failure. And so, Cain makes a fatal psychological error. He decides that if he can just shatter the mirror, the ugly reflection will go away. If he can eliminate the trigger, he can eliminate the feeling. He must destroy Abel to destroy his own envy. The text is chillingly simple. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. The predator was not mastered. It was unleashed. And it did not consume some abstract sin. It consumed his brother. What follows is the second divine intervention. God comes to Cain again. And again, he asks a question designed to provoke self-reflection. Where is your brother Abel? God knows the answer, of course. The question is for Cain's benefit. It is one last chance for confession, for a reckoning with what he has done. Cain's reply is perhaps the most famous and haunting sentence in the entire book. I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? This is the voice of a soul that has completely abdicated responsibility. It is a cynical, defiant, and deeply tragic statement. It is the verbalization of the poison's final victory. Envy, when it is allowed to rule, does not just destroy others. It severs our own connection to humanity. It isolates us in a cold, paranoid universe where we are responsible for no one but ourselves. It is the ultimate expression of alienation. The consequences are swift and poetic. God says, "You are under a curse and driven from the ground. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." This is not an arbitrary punishment. It is the natural, external manifestation of Cain's internal state. He who refused to keep his brother can no longer be kept by the earth. The ground that drank his brother's blood will no longer yield its fruit to him. And he who is so profoundly disconnected from others is doomed to be a restless wanderer. How could he be anything else? When you are at war with your own shadow and have severed your bond with humanity, there is no place to call home. You can only wander. Cain, finally grasping the magnitude of his alienation, cries out in despair, "My punishment is more than I can bear." And in a final, mysterious act of grace, God places a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. This mark is a profound paradox. It is a brand of shame, the sign of a murderer. But it is also a sign of divine protection. It signifies that even in his deepest alienation, even after becoming a slave to the predator at his door, he is not entirely abandoned. He is marked, but he is preserved. The story of Cain is not about a monster from the ancient past. It is a story about you and about me. It is a story about that phone in your hand. That feeling of envy is the modern echo of Cain's downcast face. And the story offers us the same choice that God offered him. Envy is not a sin to be repressed. It is a signal. It is an invitation to ask the first question God asked. Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? It invites us to look inward, to take responsibility for the predator crouching at our own door. Because the story of Cain teaches us a terrifying truth. If we do not master our own shadow, we will inevitably project it. We will turn the Abels in our lives, our friends, our colleagues, our rivals, into the villains of our story, all to avoid the difficult, courageous work of confronting the real enemy within. The choice is ours, every single day, in every moment of comparison. Do we accept the invitation to introspection and the responsibility to rule over our own inner world? Or do we look for a field and a brother to blame? This deep dive into the shadows of our own nature is what we are committed to at Soul Scripts. It is not comfortable work, but it is essential. If this exploration has given you a new framework for understanding your own internal struggles, help this conversation reach others. Subscribe and share your own insights on the challenge of envy in the comments below. Thank you for having the courage to look into this ancient and deeply human mirror.